Another episode of The Gadfly. I'm your host, David Rich. We have a very special guest tonight, Erin Cartwright-Weinstein. How are you tonight, Erin?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fabulous, thank you. So it's been a little while since I've had you on a show. You've been on my radio show a multitude of times, and a couple of my other shows you've been on as well as your husband, David Weinstein.
Yes.
So it's good to have you back on. So welcome.
It's great to be back on.
Thank you. We have some things to discuss here. So you're running. You are the Lake County Circuit Court clerk. Let me put up the little banner here.
Yeah.
Which took me a while to say fluidly, because there's just like way too many C's in that phrase there. But I think I've got it now. And this year is an election year, and you are up for re-election, correct?
Not until 2024. I ran in 2020, and then it's a 4-year term, so I'd be up in 2024.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were running this year.
Nope. I think you're thinking of Holly.
Holly running this year?
Holly Kim's running this year. Yeah.
I am. I'm confusing you two. I thought that it was the exact opposite of that. Okay, that's fine.
It's her turn.
Okay, cool. Well, all right, then I can't ask you about your campaign.
Not yet.
No, not yet at all. Well, okay, why don't you give us like a summary of like exactly what it is your office is for. What is its function? What is its purpose? What do you do?
So we are the record keeper for the court system. So we have court clerks, and there are approximately 138 of us, and they either manage the courtrooms or they manage the public spaces of the courthouses where people do their filings, get questions and answers on their cases. They set court dates. They file their petitions. They pick up copies of court cases. So we handle criminal, civil, and traffic. So we have 5.
So everything.
Everything, right? Everything at the state level for Lake County. And we have 5 courthouses, and we have a juvenile courthouse in Vernon Hills, and then we have 3 branch courts that handle traffic cases, which are in Round Lake, Park City, and Mundelein. And then we have our main courthouse in Waukegan, where we have a criminal court tower, which has all of our criminal cases, and then we have a main courthouse, which houses the civil cases.
That's okay. I didn't. What counts as juvenile?
Juvenile would be any juvenile delinquency cases. So anyone who's charged with a case and they're 17 or under, they would be charged juvenile unless it's a murder or a class X or something that the statute allows them to be charged as an adult. And they are kept separately at the juvenile courthouse because they can't be. All of their cases are kept sealed at all times because of their juveniles, and then they have to be kept separate from the adult population, from the jail, or any adults that are, in the courthouse. So
what if a 16-year-old gets convicted and goes to jail? Where do they go?
They go to the juvenile DOC.
Oh, there's
or they could be right, or they could be at our. We have a detention center in Vernon Hills, so if it's a misdemeanor or something smaller or a shorter sentence, they may just stay at that detention center.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize we had a detention center in Vernon Hills. Where is that?
It's right by the courthouse on Route 21, the Deputy Center. So when you pull in, right in front of you would be the juvenile detention center, and then attached to that is our offices for all of the different programs that they run for the juveniles, and then probation is in there, and then next to that is the courthouse, the newer looking facility.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I know where that is. That's very interesting. And like, how many juveniles can that detention center hold?
Oh, you're asking me a question that is more for the courts.
Is it like? Would you say it's over 1,000?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to estimate it probably about 150 to 175 females, and same for males.
Oh, so it houses both males and females, just in different areas. Yeah. Wow. Do we have
they're separate areas, but yes, it houses both.
Do we have a lot of juvenile delinquents in Lake County?
I'm trying to think if I have comparables. I mean, I don't want to say it's horrible. I really don't. I mean, I think, there are always issues, but when I think of that kind of stuff, I think I'm comparing myself to Cook County.
Yep. Don't do
that.
We could have, that's expected in Cook County.
Yeah, but I I would probably say less than would be expected if they did a study on our population.
Okay, just per capita or percentage wise, a lot less.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the case for our adult detention center. So we are definitely below what they say, that with our population, we should probably have about 1,500 at any given time in our Lake County Jail, adult Lake County Jail. And we don't, we run about probably approximately 600.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Wow.
it'll fluctuate 550 to 850 or so. So I'm just kind of estimating. It's been a little bit lower lately since COVID, but.
Sure. Yeah. Some people were released just because of COVID, right? Like if they had a lesser sentence or lesser offense, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they did go through all of the cases and determine who absolutely had to stay and who could be released.
Right. That must have been a huge effort on the part of the judicial system in the county to determine that. Like, how do you decide that? I mean, they're in jail for a reason. I mean, I'm not saying everybody that's in jail deserves to be there, but I mean, I'm assuming most do. You know, so I mean, I'm assuming if the system gets it wrong, it's infrequent.
They don't house very many people who shouldn't be in there. I mean, obviously, I mean, even saying the numbers that we should with our population have about 1,500, and we run at about 40% of that. So in general, they really don't. I mean, every judge is a little bit different, so they may be more impacted by something or tend to order a higher bond than other judges. I mean, you're always going to have that in any human job, but than others. But yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, they really, when they had to go through that process a couple of years ago, it was the state's attorney and the public defender and the chief judge and the presiding judge of criminal and the court administrator all worked together to determine, who had to stay in and who could be released. So they went through a pretty careful process.
I would imagine. That's really interesting. And I mean, has COVID really kind of like messed up the entire process of the typical way of things in the county judicial system?
It's changed it for sure. I mean,
permanently or temporarily?
I think it's going to be a pretty permanent change. There's a lot of desire to keep the Zoom court calls or the video conferencing. I'm sorry, I hope you still hear my dog in the background.
Just barely. It's fine. It's not distracting. It's
so naughty. But the Supreme Court has really liked the concept of people who, a lot of it is people who work, and they don't have to leave work and take off an entire morning in order to sit in court and wait for their court case to be called, that they can actually get on a computer and, be able to stay in their court, and their location of their offices or whatever, and not have to drive all the way into Waukegan. So there's definitely a push, and there's been a real access to justice push by the Supreme Court, attorneys, legislators. I mean, there's a lot of things that, that are ongoing, and they're working on a lot of change to be able to bring justice make it a little bit more user-friendly for the public. As much as you can do that.
Can you unravel that a little bit? Because that's you and I have discussed outside of this in conversations how important that is to, I mean, yourself in that position and just me as a human being. That justice is very, access to justice is extremely important, no matter what, no matter who you are and that kind of thing. And obviously we have some tendencies in this country where it's not equal access by everybody, not even close. So what does that mean on the state level?
It's a very broad spectrum. There are parts of it that are simple things that we know that the court system is really complicated, and the language is complicated, and the way we do things is complicated, and making those procedures more user-friendly for the community. So we would say, we're going to, the Supreme Court provides all of these forms, and you can use these forms to, initiate your case or to help you and guide you through things so that you're not sitting there completely stumped. And so that's one piece of it from the Supreme Court. Another access to justice piece is looking at all of the fines and fees and how excessive they are, and that the majority of the population can't afford them, and finding other ways to, looking at other ways to fund the court system versus just, making it on the backs of the community. I mean, I think we all, know when you get a traffic ticket, I mean, that's $265 off the bat, right? So those things are very expensive for people, and a lot of people just can't do it, and there's implications when you can't pay the court fines and fees. So we had a new statute come down in 2019 called the Criminal Traffic Assessment Act, and that act was initiated in order to make to make the fees more reasonable. So we weren't just, I mean, all these random fees just started coming up in the legislature where, oh, you can, it's a trauma center fee or a, AIM fee, or, and it's not that it's not great to contribute to those causes, but, they were, all those fees start to add up, and, people end up with a criminal case, and, they're paying $3,000 to $5,000, and it's just not doable for the majority of the population. So that's one piece of it. But there's broader scopes. There's looking into race relations. There's all kinds of different scopes to access to justice. And I'm actually not on the Access to Justice Committee, but there is a committee that is comprised of chief judges, the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts, which work with the circuit clerks and the judges, and they basically are part of the Supreme Court. And then there's the circuit clerks are involved in that access to justice. And they may, I'm not in it, so I'm not exactly sure if they have state's attorneys. I would assume that they would have state's attorneys and public defenders as part of it. But they meet, and, we as a team, they report back to us about what everybody's looking at. But there's been a lot of legislative change and just creating like a uniformity so that if you go, to a courthouse down in Madison County, it won't be so different from the courthouse in Lake County, because people, you might live in Madison County, move to Lake, and then all of a sudden it's a whole new judicial system and it's hard to function and understand. So there's a lot of those kinds of pieces.
Or even like, I remember I went down to Southern Illinois to visit a friend. This is a long time ago. And I drove back up and I got a speeding ticket in Kankakee County. Mm-hmm. And I live up here, and I had to go back down there to go to court, which was a drag. I mean, legally, I don't remember any confusions or anything. It was just a culture shock. I mean, it's like, you're south of Chicago, you might as well be in Alabama. It was really quite interesting. Anyway, okay, that's very cool. I mean, that's encouraging to hear. Can you talk more about the racial relations thing?
I mean, I'm not part of the access to justice piece, but I know that a lot of looking at fines and fees and inequities and the African American or Latino populations in the jail is being looked at, and are they being treated differently than the Caucasian population? So I mean, I know that there's a lot of studies going on related to that, and really taking a look at what can be done to try and prevent that. So, I mean, I wish I was on the committee. I could probably share a little bit more about what they're looking at, but I do know that that's been a focus for them.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah, I'd like if you know somebody on that committee, I'd like to talk to them, because that'd be interesting. Sure. Yeah, that'd be very cool. I'd like to know about that. Yeah, the whole racial relations thing is obviously a big part of the national narrative right now. Has been for several years, and rightly so. Derek Chauvin really kind of opened up that can, didn't he? So, when an entire world protests your behavior. No, not even close. I mean, there's Ferguson years before that, and, for sure, it goes all the way back to the inception of the country. Yeah.
McDonald, that's been a big one in the press lately.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Tell us about that, because I heard about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just probably saw what you did on the news, but I just know that he served his 3 years for shooting Laquan based on the charges he was found guilty on, and now they're looking at possible federal charges.
Yeah, because he's getting Vanderbeek, is that his name, or Vander something or other?
You're right. I'm trying to remember too. Now I can't remember.
I think it's Vanderson. I don't think it's McDonald. But I know the guy who shot.
Dave will answer that.
The guy, yeah, exactly. David, where are you? It's the cop who shot the 17-year-old kid with his hands in the air like 16 times.
Right.
And it was he's getting out after like 3 years for good behavior. Can you explain that? Like, how does somebody get after murdering somebody? I understand he's a cop and maybe there's a lesser sentence because of his service. I don't know, which would be stupid. There's not good. Thank you. How good of an inmate do you need to be in order to get out after 3 years?
You're taking me back to my lawyer years here.
Yes, I am.
The statutes establish sentencing guidelines for certain case types. So if he was, whether he was convicted of a class 1, class 2, 3, 4, or class X, those sentencing guidelines are set, and then the judges have to work within the parameters of those sentencing guidelines. So could his public service as a police officer have impacted whether the judge went to the max of that sentencing guideline or the minimum? Yes.
Right. Okay.
But the judge still has to work within that guideline.
And that brings up another point. I asked our mutual friend, the Honorable Rhonda Bruno, this question. If everything is so seemingly algorithmic in the justice system, meaning like you have these you have these standards by which you approach these offenses, everything is sort of like written out and defined very specifically and rigidly. Why do you even, you could actually just plug the information of a case into a computer and the computer can decide guilt or not guilty.
Well, I can't tell you that we're not going that way.
Okay.
So there's actually a company I'm working with right now on artificial intelligence in my office. So that same company did a presentation for us about 2.5 years ago, or almost 3 at this point. And we have these, it's called we have these technology conferences. They're called CTC, and we go out wherever they are. We go to these conferences and learn about the different technology that they can bring into the courts and the clerk's offices. And one of their technology pieces is an artificial intelligence robot that does do all of the jobs that a judge does. So It's really interesting. I think it's going to take a really long time for our judicial system to really be comfortable with something like that, because you take so many pieces of being human out of it. You don't.
Compassion's gone.
Right, compassion. Looking at credibility. You start looking, right now we would look at it as like a lie detector test, right? The robot would just be trying to scan you the way, and establish from your facial expressions, if you're lying or not. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, so it takes away that, a person-to-person credibility. And I think it's going to be tough for the judiciary to, or the courts to change to something like that. But I wouldn't say it's not coming. Even I'm looking at it. I'm looking at having approximately 2 robots in my office, and they will literally, they're bots on a server. I wish they were actually walking around. That'd be kind of cool. But yeah. And at that technology conference, they actually did have a robot named Cora, and she was moving all around in the conference. We could ask her all kinds of questions. It was really cool. But anyway, we are looking at having them. What they'll do is, right now we have like what's called an e-filing manager, and that takes in documents for civil cases, and the person plugs information in about the document that they're submitting, and then it brings it up through the system. And then my clerk is a reviewer clerk, so we look and make sure that the information that the person who did it correctly, make sure it meets all the requirements that the judge has given us to ensure that it should be filed, and then we accept it or reject it. And these robots will do that for us. And they will be running all night long. So if now we have like up to 48 hours to review and accept or reject, it's going to be done within possibly minutes. And they'll go all night long. So if someone files something at midnight, they might get it back at 12:03.
Wow.
I know, it's pretty cool. Really, really cool.
That's one step closer to like the whole Terminator movie. But no, I know it's an interesting thing. Using computer systems are based on logic, and of course you want that in any reasoning process.
And it's really hard. We're taking a brunt of the changes in society after COVID, and we're really struggling to get staff. So this really helps us offset the fact that we're really short staffed.
How short? Like how desperate are you guys for stuff?
So we're probably at about 8% reduced capacity. So
That's significant, though.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely impacting us. So we
People
have
just
138
quit?
positions.
People quit?
It's a lot of it's higher paying jobs. It's deciding to stay home. It's wanting flex hours. It's, there's so many pieces to it. And we're open by statute. We're open the hours the courts tell us we're open. So we're open 8:30 to 5, and we don't have a whole lot of remote work options. And
that's what I was going to ask you. Is like, is there any push to like kind of keep people at home and work from home? But no, there's not. That's not a lot of.
For us right now, because we're in the process of getting a new case management system, and we're on an old COBOL system, and the fact that we're still paper files until we get that new system up and running this summer, that there's just no way
COBOL.
We can have people work from home.
Yeah, I heard I'm like the bank's still on like DOS or something. Yeah, like there's all sorts of antiquated systems.
I heard that they're like the really back end of the banks. Yeah, you can. They have some older systems.
Yeah. Well, okay. So talk about that. I mean, honestly, like half the questions I had for you are gone because I thought you were running for office. So tell us about it. Like, no, that's okay. It's my fault. I mean, you're right. I confused you and Holly because we're all on the same thread. So we always talk to each other about each. As of 2 years ago, when you got elected to this position, what kind of changes have you made in the office? What did you see that needed to be done? Obviously, there's a new system coming, but
So I'm in my second term. I started December 1st of 2016, and when I came in, the first thing I did was start working on the case management system. We're on COBOL, and it's just can't meet our needs. And there are a lot of, when I was talking about the access to justice piece, this is one of the parts that causes an impact, is that we struggle to really supply data in the manner in which that a lot of these organizations that are doing these studies need the data supplied to them, because we can't pin things together very easily. So if someone wants, the number of African American males from 18 to 25 who've been arrested for a Class A misdemeanor, I can't break those things down in a COBOL system.
Right.
In the new case management system, I can break that down and be able to provide that data to help, these organizations do the work that they need to do. So we started with that, and once we got running with that, the second thing we did was we went in and we started digitizing all of our documents. And that process started about a year and a half, 2 years ago, because we run completely on paper with the system, and so our goal was that the documents would all be backed up and be ready to go by the time the case management system went into play, but that really actually didn't end up happening as quickly as we'd hoped. So it's moving a little bit slower, but it's getting done. So once that case management system's in play, then people will be able to pull their documents up from home on their case. Print, attorneys will be able to, you go in and hire an attorney and they're able to print everything off right there for you. So those are the two big things. The third thing we worked on, really, there was a lot of morale issues in my office. So that was a huge priority, was to really help people feel supported and important, and make sure that they knew.
No, that's important.
Right. I mean, I don't have a job without them. Right. I mean, I can't run that office by myself. And I'm really blessed. I have amazing, amazing, amazing staff. And, every day you just have to keep working at making sure that they feel comfortable and that they know they can come in and knock on your door. And, if they need anything.
That's good. That's good. More bosses should be like that. And maybe you wouldn't have such a labor crisis if you actually treated them with dignity and respect and like paid them a living wage in the first place. Maybe this wouldn't happen. Yeah. But what do you think was the cause of the morale issues when you first got in there? Like, obviously it was the predecessor, but like what about it? Were they just mean to them or aloof?
I think there were different pieces to it. There was I think that, two predecessors back, I had heard complaints. She hired a lot of family and friends to be in the office. And so that was one thing. They started unionizing under her. And
that speaks tones.
Yeah.
They go to the union.
So they're, and quite frankly, it's not a bad thing for them to have a union. I mean, it really.
I love unions.
I mean, the union really does have a great backbone that helps me support them, and with wages and making sure that their needs are met. And so they started unionizing under her, and I think a lot of them really loved her. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
at all, I mean, she was in there for 32 years, and
Wow.
I hear great stories about her, so it's not I don't think she was a horrible boss. I know my predecessor prior, just the one prior to me, there was a lot of struggle with kindness in the office, I think. So that, I remember when I first started having a lot of my staff come into my office just bawling. They were so afraid all the time. You're going to yell at me, you're going to scream at me. And I remember I got really mad about something in my office one day. It was something happened. I'm like, that is just not, I'm not going down that road. I'm not doing that, and I could see them all go, and I was like, okay, Erin, you have to.
It's like a battered dog.
Yeah, you have to, everything's got zen in here, even if I don't like something. So, so we really had to, I had to adjust to make sure that they felt comfortable, and, and quite frankly, they work really hard for me. I mean, I feel so blessed. I really do. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a lot of work addressing that. And I want to say it took me my first term, like my entire first term, to really see people start to feel less resentment and less anger and less fear, and start to really stand out and want to do things. We would have a Christmas party at a bowling alley, and
things like that are huge.
Few would come, and then the next year a few more would come, and then you start so then you start to see more of them come, and just adding. We had shout out walls, so every time someone does something, gets a compliment, they're up in a raffle, and so you just have to keep doing all that kind of stuff.
And builds morale, makes people feel needed and wanted, and
more
than just
celebrate them.
Yeah, exactly. More than just a thing that's there to do something and then leave, and that's it. And it always baffled me, and how employers treated their employees sometimes. I mean, it's just like, if you think I can't walk out of here, especially working in restaurants like I did, you think I can't walk out of here and get another job of equal or greater pay in 5 minutes? You're out of your mind. Oh yeah, so keep talking to me like that, see what happens. But I mean, that's not the case in every market or every industry.
Yeah, and we have a tough job. I mean, you're walking into all the complications that a litigant feels. You're walking in going, okay, what is this lingo? What is this computer system? What are these motions that are being filed? How are there this many case types? What does this mean? And then you have to go sit next to a judge, take their minutes, give them what they need, help the attorneys. There's and there's a lot of intimidation when you first meet a judge. I mean, you have
they have a lot of power.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get used to being with them, and
are most judges nice people, or no?
Oh yeah,
most are nice.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
So you say, oh yeah, I like it. It's I don't know. I told you I met one. I didn't like him.
Yeah.
But but the other ones,
you're on the other side of the bench.
I guess so. Why do they have to sit higher than us? I don't like that they have to sit higher than us. I think that's condescending.
I will say, so our current chief judge, Mark Levitt, when he first started, he had come from down in the city. I think he was working maybe in the public defender's office in the city for a while, and I remember he was doing an order of protection hearing, and there was a guy in the wheelchair on the other side of the bench. And I remember he got down off the bench, and I was the practicing attorney at this point still, so I was in the courtroom on a case, and he came down and stood next to him and just explained it to him. And I'm like, that's class. That's caring about who's in front of you, and that's class. And I was really impressed with that.
Did you hear? I'm assuming you heard about the lady judge up in Michigan or Minnesota that yelled at the elderly man because his yard was messy.
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah, she was recorded, like she screamed at this guy, and he's like, I can't, like something about like his flower garden bed or something was like not well kept, and she got all up in his face. How dare you keep it like that, or your neighbors have to look at that, blah 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 blah. Anyway, there was a public backlash at that, of course, and there should be. And she apologized. She's like, I'm sorry. She actually turned herself into like the ethics board or whatever it is. You didn't hear about that?
Wow, no.
Yeah,
Wow.
no. I guess she's like, I totally screwed up. I don't know why I did that, but she was. You see on the video, she's like yelling at the guy, and the guy's like, elderly, and he's like, I can't do anything about it. She's like, how dare you? So
We
yeah.
all have our moments.
We do all have our moments, but yeah, but judges have an awful lot of power, and so it's intimidating to stand in front of a judge, even if it's just for a traffic ticket. So
Absolutely, totally agree
yeah,
with you.
yeah. Okay, we got about 25 minutes left here. Can we talk a little bit more about something like just about the judicial system in general? Do you mind if I ask you questions about that? Because you were a lawyer for a long time. Real quick, give us a 30-minute summary on your lawyering career.
Well, when I went to law school, my goal actually was to be a prosecutor, and I worked in Michigan as an intern actually, I worked as an intern in St. Joseph County, Indiana, when I went to St. Mary's Notre Dame as an undergrad at their prosecutor's office as an intern for a year. And then when I was in Michigan, my third year of law school, I worked in the Livingston County prosecutor's office as an intern. And there, they have it's called the 711 license, which is Supreme Court 711, which means that you get permission as a government intern to be able to practice. And here you have to be supervised all the time in every case type. In Michigan, I could do misdemeanors, traffics, and juvenile cases without having someone with me, but I couldn't do felonies at all. So it's a little bit of a different scenario, but yeah, I stayed with them for a year and worked as an intern with their office. And then when I graduated from law school, I was hired here in Lake County. So I worked as a prosecutor for 4 years. And a lot of your viewers probably know Mike Neerheim. He was actually he was my mentor.
Really?
He had come in 6 months prior to me, so he had the pleasure of training me. So now he's the circuit judge in Lake County.
Yep.
And he was a great help to me, great guy. And I went from there and I left and I went to a law firm in Highland Park called Chassaw Schaefer PC. And there I practiced family law. And I still kept doing some of my own stuff. Like I still took on orders of protection and some minor guardianship work in probate. And I did some criminal defense, very little criminal defense, but some. And then I went out on my own and I had probably 90% of my practice was family law. I still did a lot of orders of protection, a couple minor guardianships, added some adult guardianships to that. So that's my legal.
Yeah, family law is tough. Background. Okay, there you go. In 60 seconds or less. Family law is tough. I know that when I lived in Portland, Oregon, I ended up befriending like a gaggle of lawyers. They were still in law school. Lewis and Clerk Law School, and some of them and I became really good friends and are still friends to this day. So I was able to get a decent idea of like some of the inner workings of our judicial system. And one of the things that they told me is that there was the highest burnout rate amongst all different types of law is family law.
It's a little bit of what happened to me. I mean, I loved it, but I always tell this story. So the Tuesday night, so you can see the picture behind me. That's my horse when I was in high school.
Okay.
I've ridden horses my whole life, and so I would have a riding lesson on Tuesday night. And it was the only night that my trainer taught. Well, I didn't have a cell phone signal in the barn. And the first Tuesday night after I took this job as circuit court clerk, I remember getting back to my car at 8:00 at night and just holding my cell phone, waiting for it to go off, because I would always have to get home, file like 2 different emergency motions, return client calls where people were panicking. And it was like, I didn't realize how anxious I had gotten, until that moment when I was like, oh, I feel so empty. Like no one needs me. I mean, and I loved it. And I loved working with my clients and, it's tough. Yeah. No, and I did.
Because there's kids involved, there's abuse, divorce sucks no matter, big time. And I think a lot of it has to, I'm just guessing, I don't know, that a lot of it has to do with just the children involved. I mean, who wants to see children, abuse children or hear about it and the details of what happened and that kind of thing. And, I couldn't even imagine. That's tough stuff.
It was tough. It was. I mean, but you do feel like you're trying to help people too.
Yeah, well, for sure.
It does. It has that aspect to it of, feeling like you're there and, not just a legal guidance, but you're there to help them through it.
Do you think there's enough of that in our judicial system? Like, actually trying to help the person that even if they committed technically a crime, to help them become a better person? This goes down to like the philosophical distinction between like retributive law and retributive punishment and reparational. Like, do you punish somebody merely because they did something wrong, or do you actually try to help them get better so they don't do it again?
That's another piece of the access to justice that's really been a big drive, is what can you do to help people? And we've seen the justice system open up over the last 5 or 6, well, probably a little bit longer than that, maybe 7 or 8 years now, with our specialty courts. So we have the Veterans Court, Drug Court, Mental Health Court. And it's very intense. I mean, the people that are accepted into those programs it's so intense. And I love watching the graduations because you're just so proud of people. I mean, I'm not a big crier and I'll get a little teary eyed because you just see these people get through really tough times and come out on top. And the case ends up dismissed if they finish it. But it's very intense. They have, there's 2 judges that are assigned to that courtroom, and they are very close to those defendants by the time, they've finished up the program. And there's times that people don't make it round 1 and come back and, something else happens and they come back and they're accepted back in and make it the second time. So it's really a really cool program. And then they also, I'm sorry.
Is that interesting?
Yeah, they're great programs. And our probation department through the courts are very involved in making sure that they get all of their needs met, whatever those needs may be. I mean, it's very person on person focused, which is great.
That's okay.
And then Waukegan Township, they've opened up it's called Coalition Legal, and they have a coalition to reduce recidivism. And that program, they have on-site staff that help people find jobs after they've gotten out of jail. And they help them also with expungement. So if there are these general cases that you just, could really go away, and be expunged or sealed, and people don't realize that, they help them work through that process. And I'm on the executive steering committee for that. So I really enjoy seeing the successes that they've had. I mean, it's pretty cool. You get to watch these people really make a difference. And I've learned a lot just watching. There's a show called Conviction on Amazon Prime, and it's not long. It's but this guy was actually friends with a local attorney, Renee Amen, and he went to law school with her, but he went to jail when he was 16, got out when he was 32, and was convicted of murder, and it was overturned. So now he went to law school so that he can, I
think I heard about this show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great show. And
let's talk. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say you learn a lot. I mean, there are people here that have been through that.
Yeah, let's talk about when the system makes a mistake. I can't even imagine what I would do if and I talked to Bruno about this too, both of them. I don't know what I would do if I knew I didn't commit the crime and I was on trial for it and it looked like I was about to be convicted. I don't even know what I'd do. I mean, I'm not a crazy person at all, but I don't know. If I knew I was innocent, I'm like you. I don't know if I'd let them put me in jail. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. That's crazy to me that I would be incarcerated, put in a cage when I didn't do anything wrong. Okay, so let's talk. Just go ahead.
But that's the big. I mean, everyone asks Dave all the time, "How can you be a criminal defense attorney?" And I was so prosecutor driven when I graduated law school. I didn't understand how you could be a defense attorney. But then when I actually did get to do defense work, and I learned that there are other pieces to this, that it's not just always black and white, right? It's people, they have to be able to prove the case. And so it's so important that we keep people on task. And that's what a defense attorney is there for. And what they do is that they make sure that, well, it's their job to make sure, if there's something wrong with that case, that's what they look at. And I'm not saying it's not a perfect system, right? I mean, that's just not always feasible, right? I mean, it's one person's word against another person's word, but yeah, when I was practicing, I got to see the other side and the other perspective when I was.
You've never been a defense attorney?
I took on some cases when I was practicing, but I didn't do a lot of defense work. No, I was mostly focused on family law.
All right. Do you know of are there any statistics like X out of Y cases that go wrong?
You know,
somebody somewhere has that number.
And okay. I would bet you that there's a wrongful conviction group out of Northwestern University, and I will bet they have those stats.
Northwestern?
Yeah, Northwestern. Okay. They have a huge program at helping those who've been wrongfully convicted.
Is that like all over the United States? Because I feel like is that what it's called? Okay, yeah. It's like wrongful conviction, yeah.
Yeah. They were part of the moratorium for Illinois. They're part of the reason that moratorium was put into place. They're a very strong group. They were saying that the governor ended up going to jail anyway. At the time at the moratorium, I can't remember his name, Edgar or something like that. For something else, but no, he was saying that it was possible that like 6 out of 10 people on death row were innocent. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have no idea. I remember that number exactly. I was like, that's an astonishingly high number, and that's crazy. I just saw a number recently sorry, go ahead. Sorry, science has changed. I mean, we have absolutely DNA and all that. DNA, genetics, DNA testing, evidence is technology. There's cameras everywhere. That kind of stuff. So yeah, for sure. I just read an article about, again, it's all kind of like a statistical speculation more than it is actual 100% fact. But the lowest estimate was that there are 20,000 people in the federal prison system that are innocent. The highest estimate was 100,000. Both numbers are obviously one is too many. But I mean, I was like, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of people. Now, of course, there's also the notion of they were innocent of the crime they were convicted of, but they were still doing other things bad too, that kind of thing, But you can't. That's not justice. Just because they did other things bad, they need to be tried for what they were. There's evidence that they did. Yeah. That's interesting that you thought that. Is that common amongst law students or new lawyers that defending lawyers are bad people and prosecutors are good people? No, and I don't even think I felt that way. I just when I was in high school, I had wanted to go into white collar prosecution. So I mean, that'd be good. Yeah. My goal in high school was more, to go to law school and become a federal prosecutor. And I mean, my life didn't go that way, but that's okay. I'm happy. Okay. But, I think it was always just me. I don't think it was because I didn't think defense attorneys were good. I mean, I married one. Right. That's good. That speaks to us. I think it was just a new perspective when I became a defense attorney, or took on defense cases, of realizing that I think you recognize more that the strength of the accountability on both sides. And it's not that as a prosecutor, my expectations were not that the police did their job correctly, or that I wouldn't hold, my belief wasn't we hold on to a case that doesn't have grounds to be held on to. That was never my belief. But when I actually did the defense work and you look at it from a legal standpoint, and it's a different perspective. It really is. Oh, absolutely it is. I get that. But there's I actually got Eric Reinhardt on my radio show to agree to this next statement, that there are too many prosecuting either the DAs or AGs or whoever that are more interested in getting their conviction rates up than they are the truth. And he would know. You don't agree with that? It's fine if you don't. You're not allowed to disagree. I see your. I mean, I guess does that happen? Yeah. Does it happen? Okay, go ahead, sir. it doesn't mean that, I mean, the people that I always worked with, whether it was in Indiana or, I mean, and granted, there was a prosecutor in Indiana I worked with that, you know, when I was an intern there, that went to federal prison. So for taking bribes, I mean, there's no perfection in any career path. You're never going to find it. So, do I think that the majority of prosecutors feel that way? I don't. No. I think that they really truly believe that the case that they're trying, they're doing the right thing. I don't. Would I say that there was pressure for us to do jury trials when I was in the state's attorney's office? There was some pressure to do jury trials. I mean, but I always felt like it was more that they wanted us to get experience, not that they were trying to get my conviction rate up. They weren't. I didn't come back if I lost and was like, I can't tell anyone I lost. Oh my God. I mean, it was never like that. It was, what did you learn from your experience? So, so I guess I didn't feel that way. And most of the prosecutors I've worked with, I have not.
Okay.
I have not felt that way.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have numbers. You know, I just had the comment by Mr. Reinhardt. That's all.
And I understand.
I don't think we ever even during the conversation that we ever quantified it. I don't know if he would say that most do that. He might have just been referring to the some that do it. And like you said, like sure, some do it. You know, that kind of thing. It was a brief part of the conversation. Anyway, okay, so. But the American judicial system, just globally, internationally, has this kind of bad rep. I mean, first of all, we talk about it. I'm going to include police in here. We'll get to police in a second. American police are ranked number 6th in the world for yearly killings. 6th. There are 210 sovereign nations. And we rank number 6th in the world for police killings. That's a very upsetting tally, and especially in supposedly a free country. We also have people are like, oh, America's the greatest country in the world. Sure, we have the biggest military, so we can kick the crap out of anybody. Good for us. And we also have the most amount of people incarcerated in this country per capita than any other country in the world. Those are not very fun figures to espouse. Would you like to say anything about that? And a lot of people think this with the mass incarceration, which is a political issue now too, that the war on drugs is a huge part of that. You could see the numbers at the beginning of the Reagan administration. We had something like 500,000 people in federal prison or something like that. By the end of his reign of terror, whatever, I hated him. It was over 1 million or something. It just almost tripled under his. And they think that it's because of the war on drugs. Now I don't have any actual numerical statistical defense of that, but it certainly makes sense. Go ahead. So what do you think about that?
It was a loaded question. A lot of questions in one.
Okay.
So I mean, you started out sort of asking me about the judicial system,
right,
and the feelings that people have about the judicial system. And a lot of and this is, you get what you pay for with my opinion here, right? But I mean, my opinion is that our judicial system is beyond complicated and it's very hard to understand. And every state has their own laws. Then we have the federal government that have their laws. And then we have judges who have their objective and subjective views on life. Then you have your lawyers that every lawyer is different and is going to try a case a little bit differently or look at a case a little bit differently. And it's a very complicated scenario. And I don't know. And if you go to court on something, whether you're going on a civil case and it's property or financial, issues that you're having, or you're going to family court because you're dealing with a divorce or child support, or you have a traffic ticket or a criminal case, no one wants to be there. No one's happy to be there. If it's not an interruption in your day. It's certainly a disruption in your life. And
yeah, no, it's a drag.
I don't know how, right? I mean, it's not like you ever go to court and you're there for something good. You're either suing someone or you're being sued, or you're charged with a case, or it's not a good scenario no matter where you look at it. So I don't know how anyone would ever feel good about our judicial system. And if you're a victim of a crime, I mean, if you lose your child, there's nothing that can replace that. Even if the judges give you $1 million or they put the person away forever, you're never going to have,
Right.
you're never going to be repaired, right? There's no repairing that. And you know, you're in a car accident and now you're paraplegic. It doesn't make any difference how much money you get. You don't get your life back, and you're not there for a good reason. And I just think it's very, and we always say this to people, even when I hire them in my office, you have to remember when you're dealing with the public, they're in here and they don't want to be here.
Right.
You do not, as much as I'm happy to see you, you don't want to see me in my office. Like you know, and the judicial system's expensive. Attorneys are expensive. Court cases, filing cases are expensive. Fees are expensive. It's time consuming. I mean, you miss work because of it. What's good? I mean, you're not going shopping and getting some retail therapy and getting something for it. You don't, you know, somehow something's wrong, right? So I guess it's really hard for me. I don't think you're ever going to have people who are like, walk out of court and go, that was the best thing in the world that ever could have happened. I mean, somehow, some
justice was truly served there.
Right. And the judge could give you $5 million, but the judge could say to you, I don't like the way that you spoke to me with this. And then you walk out going, you know, I mean, so how do you feel good ever? You know, I mean, you're a victim, you're a criminal, you're none of the words that are associated with our judicial system are good words, right?
No, they're not. I mean, but I can't think what you're describing is the case with every judicial system anywhere. Like nobody likes to go to court because you, like you said, you're either the victim or you're going after the victim, and you're just in a fight and it's a drag, and you probably lost something huge, or even minor. It's a preoccupation you'd rather not deal with. It's a distraction from your life and that kind of thing. Yeah, and there's fines and everything else, and we could talk about like but I don't think that goes to the point, and we can talk about this later. We don't have enough time for all this, especially the mass incarceration thing. Again, this is a political issue. Even though Republicans are like, who tend to be very more authoritarian, say, just generally speaking, are even like, okay, we need to stop putting people in jail. This is ridiculous. Okay, and again, it gets over a lot of minor stuff. Like, marijuana is becoming more and more tolerated, decriminalized, perfectly legal in a lot of states and that kind of thing. And there's some racial underpinnings to a lot of the drug laws and that kind of thing. I mean, if you look when these drugs were made illegal, why they were made illegal. Marijuana is a Spanish word, okay? And there's a reason why that it was made illegal in the first place. Jazz musicians back in the day were doing it, and they were mostly African-American, and the seasonal workers that were coming up from Mexico would do it. And that, I mean, I don't think that they made it illegal just because they found out that scientifically or medically it was actually bad for people, because it's really not. And if it is, alcohol's a billion times worse for you than pot ever could be. So don't give me that crap. And a lot of the laws are based on just your own cultural disposition. This, I think, it ties into some of the issues of, I think, a problem with just democracy in general is that anybody can be put into almost any office. This is how we ended up with Donald Trump. That he's not qualified to run a country. Are you out of your mind? But because it's, anybody can run. To be a judge, you have to have been a lawyer. That's good. You don't want, did you have to be a lawyer to get your job, your current position? No, you could have been anybody at all. Doesn't know anything at all about the legal system. Oh, I don't know. That would be a nightmare.
I have to tell you, it really scared me when I first started, because I went to my new clerk orientation and they're talking about all this stuff I already knew because I'd already been working in the area, and all these people were learning and taking. And I have to tell you how impressed I was with the circuit clerks, because there are 102 of us and we're all friends. I mean, we all do things together. We meet up and talk. We work together on legislation. We're always working together. And We meet constantly, and these clerks, they stepped up. I mean, and I gotta tell you how impressed I am. I really impressed.
Good. That's good. Change is definitely in the air. There's no doubt. What happened with George Floyd? I mean, obviously again Ferguson and also. I mean, but back to the day. Back to the police in this country. Police departments in this country started as people hired to track down runaway slaves. That's how police departments started in this country, literally. So not exactly a noble beginning. And some people say that they still are. Have you ever read the 13th Amendment?
So sorry you froze on me.
Oh, that was probably.
All I heard was 13th Amendment.
Okay, so technically, America still has slavery. If you read the first sentence of the 13th Amendment, where it freed the slaves, that's fun. That's interesting that governments have the power to make you either free or a slave. That's interesting. But after that, it says unless you're a criminal, blah 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 blah. So criminals technically are like literally property of the state. That's why they can make them go out and like clean up roads and stuff like that, and pay them 25 cents a day or some crap like that. That I find to be truly problematic. I'm assuming you deal with cops a lot, right? Obviously.
I used to. I mean, my staff definitely does. I hate that word staff. I hate that. Yeah, they work with them all the time.
Okay. What do you think of that? What do you think of cops? Let me. That's a lame question. Do you think that we need? Do you like the idea of police reform in this country? Do you think it needs to happen?
This is a very complicated question that takes a really long time to answer. I think everyone needs to be held accountable for their position and what they do. That's my belief. Do I think that being a police officer is an incredibly difficult job and a very scary job? I really do. I believe that there are always bad, as I stated before, there are always bad people in every career. And you can get a bad lawyer, you can get a bad judge, you can get, you can get a bad server at a restaurant, right? I mean, everywhere you go, not every career's path is going to have perfect people. And
no, it's not. But I mean,
I think that when the cops make the mistakes that we've seen happen in George Floyd and Laquan McDonald and Breonna Taylor.
Oh my God, that one's just
those were not they should not have been in their positions, and they needed to be held accountable for it. I believe that in every career, but I believe that the police are important. I think that the job that they do is very difficult and quite scary, and I have a lot of respect for them. And the majority of the police officers that I know are very good people and very caring people, and I have a ton of respect for everything they do. I mean, Dave and I were a witness to a horrific accident where someone flew out of a car and landed in front of us on the expressway.
Oh my.
And what we saw the police do for him, not everyone will do it, right? I mean, not everyone wants to take that role on. And I have a lot of respect for them. I've known police that have been beaten up in battery cases and now have permanent brain damage they have gone to domestic battery scenes and now have permanent brain damage from being injured.
Wow.
Trying to save a victim. So you see, I've seen a lot, and I have a lot of respect for the police.
Okay. So, okay. I do know I spend hours a week for the last 2 years researching policing in America from its inception till what's current stuff. And obviously the stuff that I see is very tendentious because, I'm looking for bad cop videos about bad cops, articles about bad cops. I get that. And numerically, statistically, you're talking about a very small percentage of the cops that are doing these bad things. I've known cops in my life. I've had Deputy Chief Chris Cavelli, I'm assuming you know him, on my radio show several times. Super nice guy, for sure. Very gentle man, too. Just very nice guy. And I just remember growing up, I knew some of the Mundelein cops, and some of them were really great. Some of them were not. I'm not saying that there's no need for policing. I mean, even back to like Plato talked about guardians of the city and that kind of thing. But I think something happened with policing in this country where they just, I mean, first of all, the whole notion that there's a group of people in this country that can demand your obedience literally under the threat of death is not a feature of a free society. That's not okay. Okay. Secondly, when you talked about, you didn't use the word dangerous. You said that policing is hard. I'm sure it is hard and complicated. Yes, but there is a statistic out there concerning the danger of policing. Policing in America. Well, let's start a different way. The number one most dangerous job in America, concerned like as far as like fatalities per year, and the base rate out of 100,000 is logging. About 150 out of 100,000 loggers die each year in America. Second one, I think, is like commercial fishing or something like that. Eighth, by the way, is what I do. I'm a deliverer. I deliver stuff. It's the eighth most dangerous job in the country. Policing is like 28th. I mean, it doesn't even make the top 20. So, I mean, I'm sure it's hard. I'm sure it's complicated. I'm sure bad things happen to cops. But as far as fatality rates, no, not really. So, yeah. And they walk around like they're about to go into Fallujah. They got bulletproof vests and shotguns and all sorts of crap. I don't know. It's weird. And when they get into trouble and they get sued for millions of dollars, who has to pay for that? We do. Anyway, I don't. I respect your opinion 100%, but no, I mean, I see a lot of stupid cops doing stupid things. So,
well, I think that when you're walking up on a traffic stop and you have no idea if someone has a gun in their car, it's a dangerous scenario. You go into homes where people are fighting and screaming, and you go to gang violence scenes where people are shooting at each other. I mean, it's, they don't. No,
right. We need cops. We need cops. I'm not saying we don't need cops. Okay. But I mean, I don't know. And the chances of a car having a gun in it is extremely low. But anyway, we're actually over by 2 minutes, but that's okay. I have even though I couldn't ask you any questions about your campaign, now I have 1,000 more questions I want to ask you. What's that?
That seems to happen when we.
No, which is good. That's fruitful. But that's okay. I promised you 8:00, so I guess we'll call it. Let me ask you one real quick question. Okay, you said you think people should be held accountable, even within the governmental or judicial system. What do you think about a judge who sentences somebody to 40 years in jail, and it turns out after 30 years they were proven innocent? Should that judge get in trouble?
Well,
I'm not saying the judge should go to jail necessarily, but should, instead of just like, "Oops, sorry, I just took 30 years of your life away. You didn't do anything."
Well, I don't think the majority of the judges that you talk to are going to feel like, "Oops, sorry."
Okay.
And I just don't. I mean, I would you have some judges that didn't care? Of course, because there are all different kinds of people in this society. And again, career paths, there are different personalities in every career path. But I think that the majority of our judges are making the best decisions they know how to make based upon the evidence that was presented to them. Okay. And I don't think that purposefully people would be, or any judges would be throwing people in jail they didn't believe did something. And if you look at if you look at how it works, I mean, majority of those cases you're talking about where someone's going to be in jail for 40 years, those are mostly going to be jury trials. Very few of those are going to be a bench trial where the judge is making a decision based upon his determination of the evidence and the law. But you're going to have a jury that's going to be making a decision based on the facts that are presented to them. And the judges then have to make determinations based upon of the sentence based upon what the jury found and what evidence they had heard, and whatever the defendant wants to throw out to say, hey, you should lessen my sentence because I've committed my entire life to public service, or however whatever their arguments are. But I think that there's That's why we have an appellate court. That's why we have a Supreme Court. That's why we have post-conviction petitions. I mean, there are parts of the law that do try and protect from those types of things happening. And it's not perfect. It's clearly not perfect. I mean, you've got stats that show it's not perfect. It is, it isn't. But I think we all, try and do the best we can in the judicial branch.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. I appreciate that. Having my liberty taken from me is like one of my biggest fears. I don't know. I don't do anything criminal. I'm not a criminal. I smoke pot, but it's legal now. I smoked it when it wasn't legal, but never had enough to actually put me in jail. Excuse me. I just can't imagine, again, going back to what I said earlier, like being charged or tried for something that I know I didn't do. I just don't know how I'd react. I'd have a real hard time with that.
I couldn't say either. I don't know how I'd react either.
Yeah, it's tough. But, well, thank you, Erin, for all you do, because you're a wonderful human being. You're very intelligent, and you're very kind and compassionate. And I'm happy for the people that work for you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
I adore all of them.
What's that?
I adore all of them.
Good. I was in your office a couple times. I think you reached out to me for our first interview, and I went to your office, and they were all very, very nice to me.
Yeah, they're such a nice group. I'm really, really lucky. I remind myself of that every day.
Well, that's good. That's good. All right, right on. Is there a term limit on your position? Oh, no, you said the other one was like 32 years.
Yep.
Oh,
I can run forever.
Can you see yourself doing this forever?
I don't know. I don't think so. Probably not forever, but
that's a long time.
And I'm loving it now.
Okay, good. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into The Gadfly. I'm your host, David Rich, with our very special guest, Erin Cartwright-Weinstein. Erin, thank you so much again. Let's figure out dinner plans, shall we?
Absolutely.
All right. You take care.
Tell me some more.
We always, when we go to dinner with you, have these conversations too. So, the difference here is that you're at home and I'm here. So, okay, cool. All right. You have a great night. Thank you again, everybody. Until next time, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.